Have you ever wondered if time is really a straight line? If the past, present, and future exist simultaneously, just at different frequencies of reality? Today I'm going to reveal 10 stories that have been deliberately hidden. 10 cases of time travel and interdimensional portals that challenge everything we've been taught about physics and reality. From a Chilean soldier who disappeared for 15 minutes but returned with 7 days' worth of beard growth, to an engineer who claims to have worked at a secret base with a portal to other worlds. These are not urban legends. They are documented cases, with witnesses, with physical evidence, with consequences that still resonate today. Get ready to question everything you thought you knew about time and space, because after hearing these 10 stories, you will never see reality in the same way again. Let's begin. Story number 1. The disappearance of Corporal Armando Valdez. Let's travel together to April 25th, 1977. Atacama Desert, Chile, one of the most arid and desolate places on the planet. A landscape that seems otherworldly. Red mountains, endless sand, absolute silence. The Chilean army is conducting a routine patrol. 7 soldiers under the command of Corporal Armando Valdez. A quiet night. Clear skies, millions of stars. And then it happens. An object appears in the sky, a pulsating light, bright, hypnotic. It descends slowly until it illuminates the desert floor with a supernatural glow. The soldiers are paralyzed, staring, not understanding what they are seeing. Corporal Valdez, as the officer in charge, makes a decision. Someone has to investigate, and that someone will be him. "Stay here," he orders his men. "I'm going to see what that is." He walks toward the light, step by step, approaching the unknown. And then, before the terrified eyes of his soldiers, Corporal Armando Valdez simply disappears. There is no explosion. There is no sound. One moment he is there, walking toward the light. The next moment he is gone, as if he never existed. The 6 remaining soldiers are in a state of total panic. Their commander has just vanished into thin air. What do? Do they go after him? Do they flee? Do they call for reinforcements? They decide to wait, watching the light. With their weapons at the ready, not knowing what to expect, 15 minutes pass, the longest 15 minutes of their lives. And then, as suddenly as he disappeared, Corporal Valdez reappears. But something is very, very wrong. He emerges staggering, disoriented, confused, as if he has just awakened from a deep sleep. His soldiers rush toward him, shining their flashlights on him, and they see something impossible. Corporal Valdez has a thick beard, not a trace of stubble, not a little growth, a full beard, dense, several days' worth. But he was only gone for 15 minutes. One of the soldiers notices something else. The corporal's watch. Everyone in the army wears synchronized watches. It's standard protocol. They check the time on Valdez's watch, and they discover that his watch is exactly 7 days fast. 7 days. For the soldiers who waited, 15 minutes passed. For Corporal Armando Valdez, 7 full days passed. Where was he during that time? What happened to him? Why can't he remember anything? Corporal Valdez is immediately taken to the military base. Doctors examine him thoroughly. Indeed, his beard is real. It is not fake. His body shows signs of having gone several days without adequate food or water. But his mind is completely blank. He remembers absolutely nothing from the moment he walked into the light to the moment he reappeared in front of his men. The Chilean army immediately classifies the incident. All witnesses are ordered to sign confidentiality agreements. The case is filed away as an unexplained phenomenon, but the story leaks out. Because 6 soldiers saw the same thing, and none of them can forget it. So what really happened that night in the Atacama Desert? Theory number 1, alien abduction. The most obvious explanation for many, Corporal Valdez was taken by an alien spacecraft, brought on board, subjected to some kind of examination or experiment that lasted 7 days from his perspective. Then his memory was erased and he was returned to the same place, but with a time desynchronization. 15 minutes on Earth equaled 7 days on the ship or elsewhere. Theory number 2, time portal. What if the light was not a ship, but a portal, a crack in the fabric of space-time. Corporal Valdez walked through that crack into another temporal dimension, where time flows at a different speed. 7 days passed for him, while only 15 minutes passed in our reality. When the portal closed, he was ejected back into our time, but his body bore the physical marks of the time he actually experienced. Theory number 3, secret military experiment. Some theorists suggest that the Chilean military, or perhaps a foreign power, was testing time manipulation technology. Corporal Valdez was an unwitting test subject. After the experiment, the mysterious light story was invented to cover up the true military nature of the incident. But this theory has problems. If it was a military experiment, why classify and hide it? Why not continue with more tests? What makes this case so disturbing is the undeniable physical evidence. The beard is real. The fast-forwarding clock is real. 6 trained military witnesses saw the same thing. It's not a collective hallucination. It's not a hoax. Something impossible happened that night in the Atacama Desert. And if it can happen to a trained soldier in the middle of a military patrol, can it happen to anyone? Story number 2, David and his time machine. Now let's move on to an even stranger story. The story of a man who claims not only to have traveled through time, but to have built his own machine to do so. His name is David, and he has a device that looks like something out of a low-budget science fiction movie. The device looks like an old remote control. It has a small screen, a numeric keypad, a few extra buttons, nothing that looks particularly impressive or advanced. But according to David, this device can do the impossible. It works with a combination of electricity and water, David explains in a recorded interview. The water acts as a special conductor. It generates an energy field that can literally bend space and time. Sounds absurd, right? Like made-up pseudoscience. But here's the interesting thing. David doesn't claim that his machine can do anything. In fact, he's very specific about its limitations. I can only travel to the future, he says, and then return to the present. But I can't go to the past. It's impossible. Physics doesn't allow it. This is fascinating because it coincides with real theories in theoretical physics. According to some scientists, traveling to the future is theoretically possible through time dilation and relativistic effects. But traveling to the past creates paradoxes that are probably impossible to resolve. Is David displaying real knowledge of advanced physics, or did he just get lucky in inventing limitations that sound believable? He decides to prove it. David claims to have traveled through time 20 times, 20 different trips to the future, and he's willing to share what he saw. My furthest trip was to the year 3460, he says with complete seriousness. The year 3460. More than 1,400 years in the future. What did he see there? Floating cities, he describes with glassy eyes, as if remembering something beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Massive structures suspended in the air with no visible support, completely defying gravity. And the people, or what's left of the people, are different, hybrids, half human, half machine. Not like cyborgs with obvious mechanical parts, more like a complete fusion. Technology integrated at the cellular level, humans who have evolved beyond pure biology. David also mentioned something strange. A name. Jack Lyon Cousteau. According to David, at some point in history, a man named Jack Lyon Cousteau built a different time travel machine, a machine that could travel to the past. And Cousteau traveled to the 5th century, 500 years after Christ. Why? David doesn't know, or he doesn't want to say. But he mentions that Cousteau disappeared at that time and never returned. Trapped in the past, or perhaps choosing to stay. Now, let's be honest. This story sounds completely made up, a magic remote control that bends time. Floating cities in the year 3460. A mysterious Jack Lyon Cousteau lost in the 5th century. It's the kind of story you immediately dismiss as delusional fantasy. But then something interesting comes up. Some researchers try to verify the name Jack Lyon Cousteau. Did such a person exist? And they find something disturbing. In obscure historical archives, there are mentions of a scientist with a similar name who worked on classified projects in the 1950s and mysteriously disappeared. There are no death records. There is no explanation for his disappearance. He simply ceased to exist in official records after a certain date. Coincidence? Or does David know something he shouldn't? And then there's the device itself. Several engineering experts have examined photographs and videos of David's apparatus. Most dismiss it as a random assembly of electronic parts. But some notice something strange. Some components of the device appear to be arranged in a way that reflects very advanced theories about electromagnetic fields and zero-point energy. Theories that are extremely obscure, that aren't in textbooks, that only someone with deep knowledge of experimental theoretical physics would know. Is David a genius who really discovered something? Or is he a very knowledgeable con artist? To this day, David stands by his story. He repeatedly offers to demonstrate his device under scientific observation. But here's the problem. Every time a demonstration is scheduled, something goes wrong. The equipment breaks down. David reports temporal interference, or he simply doesn't show up. Convenient? Absolutely. Proof that he's a fraud? Not necessarily, because if you really had time travel technology, would you want to demonstrate it publicly? Would you want governments and corporations to know it exists? Or maybe, just maybe, every time David tries to do a public demonstration, someone or something from the future intervenes to stop him. Because if time travel is real, proving its existence could change history in unpredictable ways. Story number 3. The Great Pyramid of Giza as an interdimensional portal. Let's leave aside for a moment the people who claim to travel through time and talk about places. Specific places on Earth that, according to many researchers, could be natural or constructed portals to other dimensions or times, and there is no place more mysterious, more studied, and more misunderstood than the Great Pyramid of Giza. We all know the official story. The Great Pyramid was built as a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu around 2560 BC, a marvel of ancient engineering, a monument to human power and ambition. But there are problems with this official explanation. Many problems. First, the mathematical and astronomical precision of the pyramid is almost impossible for the technology that the ancient Egyptians supposedly had. The base of the pyramid is leveled with an error of less than 2 centimeters over more than 200 meters with copper and stone tools. How? The sides of the pyramid are almost perfectly aligned with the cardinal points, north, south, east, west, with a precision that rivals that of modern instruments. The ratio between the height of the pyramid and its base perimeter is exactly 2p, the same ratio as between the radius of a circle and its circumference. Coincidence? Or did the builders know p with mathematical precision thousands of years before it was officially discovered? And then there's the weight. The Great Pyramid contains approximately 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing between 2 and 80 tons. Building it in 20 years, as the official story claims, would require placing 1 block every 3 minutes, working day and night without stopping. It's statistically almost impossible with the technology they supposedly had. So what is the Great Pyramid really? Mystics and alternative researchers have proposed something radical. It is not a tomb, it is a machine. Paul Brunton, a British mystic who visited the Great Pyramid in the 1930s, claimed to have had an extraordinary experience inside the king's chamber. He spent a night alone in the chamber meditating, and according to his account, he experienced an out-of-body projection. He traveled to other dimensions. He saw realities beyond our normal space-time. He described the pyramid as a consciousness machine, a device designed to alter mental states and enable interdimensional travel through the mind. Erich von Däniken, author of Chariots of the Gods, took the theory even further. He suggested that the Great Pyramid is literally a stargate, a physical portal to other worlds, specifically to Mars. It sounds far-fetched, but von Däniken points out something interesting. The layout of the 3 pyramids at Giza matches almost perfectly the 3 stars in Orion's belt. Why? Why replicate a constellation on the ground? Unless the pyramids were markers, coordinates, a way of saying, this is the destination. And then there is the incident involving Auguste Mariette. Mariette was a French archaeologist who excavated extensively at Giza in the 19th century. He is considered one of the founders of modern Egyptology. But there is a story about him that is rarely mentioned in academic circles. According to Contemporary accounts, Mariette discovered a secret passage inside the Great Pyramid, a tunnel that was not on any map, that had not been documented by any previous explorer. He decided to explore it alone. His assistants waited outside. He was gone for hours, much longer than expected. When he finally emerged, he was completely disoriented, pale, shaking, as if he had seen something that terrified him to the core of his being. His assistants asked him what he had seen. Mariette was vague. He said he had found chambers that were not made by human hands, spaces that defied normal geometry, walls that seemed to move or change when you weren't looking directly at them. And he mentioned something even more disturbing. He felt as if he had been in that tunnel for days, but according to his assistants, only a few hours had passed. Time distortion, just like Cabo Valdez in the Chilean desert. Mariette never spoke publicly about the details of what he found, and strangely, his notes on that specific passage disappeared from his files. Were they stolen, destroyed, or did he himself remove them because they contained information too disturbing to share? Today, many researchers believe that there are still undiscovered chambers inside the Great Pyramid. Radar and Mune scans have detected unexplained voids. The Egyptian government refuses to allow further exploration. They say it is to preserve the integrity of the monument. But some suggest it's because they already know what's there, and they don't want the public to find out. Because if the Great Pyramid really is a portal, if it really was built by a civilization with technology far more advanced than we were taught, then our entire understanding of human history is wrong, and the implications of that are too great for the authorities to handle. Story number 4. Davis, the traveler from the year 2200. Let's return to people who claim to come from the future, but this time with physical evidence. A man who identifies himself only as Davis appeared on the internet in 2019, claiming to be from the year 2200, 180 years in the future. Unlike many alleged time travelers who only offer stories, Davis brought something with him. Something small, but potentially revolutionary. A food pellet the size of a pea. A small compressed disc that fits in the palm of your hand. According to Davis, this pellet contains all the calories, protein, vitamins, and nutrients a human being needs to survive for 7 full days. 7 days. In a pea-sized pill. Hunger was eradicated in the year 2150, Davis explains. Once we developed nutritional compression technology, it was no longer necessary to grow food in the traditional way. These pellets are manufactured in automated facilities. They are cheap to produce. They require no land, water, or sunlight, and they can be transported and stored indefinitely without refrigeration. If this is true, it would be the solution to one of humanity's biggest problems: world hunger, food shortages, dependence on agriculture, all solved with a pea-sized pellet. But is it real? Davis offered to provide samples of the pellet for scientific analysis. Several independent laboratories examined the composition. The results were strange. The pellet contains known organic compounds: proteins, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins. Nothing alien or impossible. But the density is incredible. The way these nutrients are compressed defies known methods of food processing. And there's more. The pellet contains traces of molecular elements that cannot be fully identified. Protein structures that appear synthetic but do not match any current protein synthesis technology. One of the scientists who examined it said it's as if someone took 50 years of advances in food science and compressed them into this object. I can't explain how it was done. But Davis offered more than just a pellet of food. He offered information about the future. In the year 2200, cancer is completely curable, he says. There is not a single type of cancer that cannot be successfully treated. People routinely live to be over 100 years old. I am 103, but as you can see, my body looks like it's 30. And indeed, Davis looks to be around 30. Young skin, no gray hair, physically in his prime. But if he really is 103, how? Advanced gene therapy, he explains. Starting in the year 2100, we discovered how to reactivate the cellular repair mechanisms that shut down as we age. Essentially, we stopped the aging process at the genetic level. Again, this isn't entirely science fiction. Scientists today are already working on life extension therapies, studies on telomeres, stem cells, and CRISPR gene editing. Davis simply describes the logical conclusion of this research. He also mentions Mars. There are cities on Mars in 2200, he says casually. About 2 million people live there permanently. It's an incredible place. The sunsets are blue instead of red. Cities on Mars. 2 million inhabitants. Elon Musk and SpaceX are currently working to put humans on Mars within the next 10 to 20 years. If that timeline continues, is it so far-fetched that by the year 2200 there will be entire cities there? And flying cars. Davis mentions that in 2200 vehicles can fly, not just fly within the atmosphere, but out into space. Personal transportation to space is as common as taking a plane today, he explains. You can fly from New York to an orbital space station in less time than it takes to fly internationally today. It all sounds incredible. Utopian. A bright future where technology has solved our biggest problems. But there is one thing Davis does not want to discuss. When asked about politics, wars, or social problems in the year 2200, he becomes evasive. I can't talk about that, he says. There are rules about what information from the future I can share. If I reveal certain events, it could change the timeline in unpredictable ways. This is convenient, of course. It's the perfect excuse for not having to give verifiable details. But it's also logical. If you really are a time traveler, there would be limits on what you can reveal. So, is Davis legitimate? The food pellet is real. Scientists confirmed it. They can't fully explain how it was made, but it exists. His knowledge of advanced science seems genuine. When he talks about physics, genetics, or engineering, he doesn't make obvious mistakes. He sounds like someone who truly understands these subjects on a deep level. And his age, if he really is 103 but looks 30, that would be definitive physical proof. But of course, there's no way to verify his actual age without access to his complete medical records. And he refuses to provide that information. What makes Davis fascinating is that, unlike many supposed time travelers, he's not trying to sell anything. He doesn't have a book. He's not asking for money. He's not seeking fame. He just showed up, shared information, provided physical evidence, and then disappeared from the internet, as if he had completed a specific mission and then returned to his own time, or as if someone had ordered him to stop talking. Story number 5, The Blue Room at Dulce Base. Now we're getting into some really dark territory. Secret military bases, classified projects, interdimensional portals controlled by the government. Dulce Base. Location: beneath Archuleta Mesa in New Mexico, United States. Officially, it doesn't exist. There are no government records of this facility. It does not appear on military maps. If you ask the Pentagon about it, they will deny any knowledge. But according to multiple witnesses, including former government workers, Dulce Base is real. And it is the site of some of the most disturbing experiments ever conducted by humankind. The base supposedly has 7 underground levels, each level deeper, more classified, further removed from any ethical oversight. The upper levels are relatively normal: biomedical research, genetic studies, animal experiments. But as you descend, things get stranger, darker. The 4th level allegedly contains experiments on humans and animals. Creation of hybrids, extreme genetic manipulation, things that violate all international conventions on experimentation. The 5th level is where they supposedly keep extraterrestrial beings. Not exactly as prisoners, more like partners, working alongside human scientists on joint projects. The 6th level is extreme psychiatry, mind control, memory manipulation, erasing and implanting false memories. And then there's the 7th level, the deepest, the most secret, where the Blue Room is located. Phil Schneider was an engineer who claimed to have worked at Dulce Base in the 1980s. According to his testimony, he helped build parts of the underground facility, and he saw things that changed him forever. The Blue Room is not a normal room, Schneider explained at a public conference in 1995. It is a chamber containing columns of light. Not light from lamps or known technology, light that simply exists, floating in the air, vertical, like solid pillars of pure energy. Schneider described how these columns of light act like a wormhole, a tunnel through space-time that connects our reality with another place. I don't know exactly where it leads, he admitted, but I saw things coming out of those columns, objects, occasionally beings. And I'm not talking about aliens as we normally think of them. I'm talking about entities that don't seem to be from this dimension at all. According to Schneider, the Blue Room portal was discovered by accident. We were digging to build another level, he explained, and suddenly we broke through a natural chamber, a massive cavern that we didn't know was there. And inside that cavern, the columns of light were already there, waiting, as if they had always been there, as if they were natural. This suggests something terrifying. The portal was not created by humans or extraterrestrials. It is a natural phenomenon, a feature of that specific location. And perhaps extraterrestrials did not arrive on Earth in spaceships. Perhaps they simply walked through portals like this that exist in certain places on the planet. Schneider also mentioned something else disturbing. In 1979, there was an incident at Dulce Base, he said, a violent conflict between human military personnel and the entities living in the lower levels. 66 people died that day, soldiers, scientists, engineers, and they weren't killed in any conventional way. They were disintegrated, burned from within, as if their life energy had been instantly drained. Schneider claimed to be one of the few survivors of that incident. He showed a huge scar on his chest in his lectures, which he said was caused by an alien weapon during the conflict. In 1996, less than a year after he began speaking publicly about Dulce Base, Phil Schneider was found dead in his apartment. The death was officially classified as suicide. According to reports, he strangled himself with a catheter tube. But there are problems with this explanation. Schneider had only partial mobility in his hands due to previous injuries. It would have been physically nearly impossible for him to strangle himself in the manner described. His family insists that he was murdered, that he was silenced before he could reveal more about what he knew. And indeed, after his death, several of his personal documents and photographs that allegedly showed evidence of Base Dulce disappeared from his apartment. Was Schneider a fantasist who made up elaborate stories? Or was he a legitimate witness who paid the ultimate price for speaking out? The disturbing thing is that he is not the only one. Several other alleged former classified project workers have mentioned underground facilities with portal technology, and many of them ended up dead in suspicious circumstances. If Dulce Base is real, if they really have an interdimensional portal on the 7th level, what else are they doing there that we don't know about? And who or what is crossing through that portal into our world? Before we continue with the next 5 stories, I want to pause and ask you something. Of the 5 stories we've covered so far, which one do you find most credible? The Chilean soldier with 7 days of stubble, David and his homemade time machine, the Great Pyramid as a stargate, the traveler from the year 2200 with his food pellet, or the terrifying Dulce Base with its portal in the Blue Room? Leave it in the comments. I want to know which of these stories resonates most with you, and why, because now we're going to dive even deeper. The next 5 stories are even stranger, older, more connected to the hidden history of humanity. Let's continue. Story number 6, the Stargate of Sri Lanka. Let's now travel to South Asia, to the ancient island of Sri Lanka, formerly known as Ceylon. This small island nation has an incredibly rich history, ancient Buddhism, millennial kingdoms, architecture that rivals anything in the ancient world. And at the heart of its ancient ruins, there is something that should not exist, the Sakala Chakraya, the Wheel of the Universe. Located in Ranmasu Uyana, a park in the ancient city of Anuradhapura, there's a flat rock engraved with an incredibly complex pattern. At first glance, it looks like just decorative art. Concentric circles, geometric symbols, the kind of design you might find in many ancient cultures. But when modern researchers examined it more closely, they discovered something astonishing. The pattern is not decorative, it is a technical diagram. The concentric circles correspond to planetary orbits. The lines connecting different points appear to represent celestial angles and astronomical alignments. And in the center there are symbols that some researchers interpret as instructions. A user manual for something. The obvious question, a manual for what? According to local legends dating back thousands of years, the Sakala Chakraya is a map, but not a map of places on Earth. It is a map of how to activate a portal. Legends tell of ancient priests who performed specific rituals at this site, with precise chants, ceremonial movements, and one crucial ingredient, mercury. Mercury, a liquid metal, highly toxic. Why would they use it in a ritual? This is where it gets fascinating. In ancient Sanskrit texts, especially the Vedas and the Puranas, there are descriptions of flying machines called vimanas, ships that could fly through the air and supposedly even travel to other worlds. And according to these texts, the vimanas used mercury as part of their propulsion system, specifically mercury spinning rapidly within electromagnetic fields, creating some kind of anti-gravitational effect. It sounds like science fiction, and most scientists dismiss it as impossible. But in the 1990s and 2000s, some researchers noticed something strange. The ancients described principles that look suspiciously like modern concepts in plasma physics and magnetic fluid dynamics. Did they know something that we are only now rediscovering? Returning to the Sakala Chakraya, legends say that when the priests performed the ritual correctly, with the right planetary alignments and the proper use of mercury, the portal opened. Not physically. You didn't see a literal door appear. But those who had prepared their minds through years of meditation and training could walk through the portal. Their physical bodies remained in Sri Lanka, but their consciousness traveled. Where? Legends mention various destinations, worlds of the gods, heavenly realms, places where time flows differently and where beings exist in higher states of consciousness. It sounds like astral travel or mystical experiences, not like actual physical travel. But here's the disturbing thing. Multiple legends from different ancient cultures describe similar concepts. The Egyptians had the duat, a realm that existed between life and death, accessible through specific rituals in specific places. The Mayans spoke of Xibalba, the underworld, but not as a place underground, but as a different dimension, accessible through sacred caves. Australian Aborigines have the dream time, a parallel reality where spirits and ancestors exist and where shamans can travel. Is all this metaphor? Primitive language trying to describe altered states of consciousness? Or are there really physical places on Earth where the barrier between dimensions is thinner, where, with the right knowledge, you can cross over? In 2003, a research team attempted something controversial. With permission from the Sri Lankan government, they conducted an experiment at the Sakala Chakraya site. They brought electromagnetic measuring equipment, gravitational anomaly detectors, the whole arsenal of modern scientific instrumentation, and they discovered something strange. The site has a magnetic anomaly. The instruments detected fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field directly above the Sakala Chakraya. Nothing dramatic. Not a visible portal, but a measurable distortion that cannot be explained by local geology. And when they took measurements during a specific planetary alignment mentioned in the legends, the anomaly intensified significantly, as if the configuration of the solar system actually affects whatever is going on at that location. One of the researchers, a skeptical physicist who hoped to discredit the legends, said something fascinating afterward. "I can't explain what we measured. Based on our current understanding of physics, those fluctuations shouldn't occur. Not like that. Not with that temporal precision. It's as if something at that site is responding to cosmic influences." The Sakala Chakraya remains today, open to visitors. You can go and touch it. You can stand on it and perform your own rituals if you want. But the question remains, is it just a rock engraved with ancient art? Or is it a map to something we don't yet fully understand? Story number 7. The House Without Doors in Mexico. Let's leave Asia and travel to Latin America, to the remote mountains of Oaxaca, Mexico. This is a region of mysteries, ancient civilizations, Zapotec and Mixtec ruins, and legends that date back to long before the Spanish conquest. And somewhere in these mountains, hidden in a remote valley, there is a structure that locals call the House Without Doors. It is exactly what it sounds like. A stone building, ancient, covered in vegetation, no windows, No doors, no visible entrance, a perfectly sealed stone cube. How was it built? How did the builders get in if there are no doors? And what is it for? Local. Legends have an answer, but it is an answer that defies logic. The house without doors doesn't need doors, say the village elders, because you don't walk in, you enter through the light. Every night, especially during a full moon, the structure emits a blue light. Not from windows, because there are no windows. The light simply emanates from the stones themselves, as if the entire building were glowing from within. And when that light appears, strange things happen. People who get too close to the house during these episodes disappear, not temporarily like Cabo Valdez, permanently, without a trace, a specific case that the locals tell. In 1983, a group of 3 hikers, foreign tourists, decided to explore the valley where the house is located. The locals warned them not to go at night, especially not on a full moon. Of course, the tourists ignored the warning. They thought it was just local superstition. They camped near the house. And that night, the blue light appeared. One of the hikers, fascinated by the phenomenon, decided to get closer. His 2 companions saw him walking toward the blue glow. And then, according to their testimony, he simply vanished. One moment he was there, illuminated by the blue light. The next, he was gone, as if he had been absorbed by the light. His 2 companions panicked. They fled the valley that same night. They reported the disappearance to the authorities. A search was organized. Trackers, dogs, helicopters. They searched for days. They never found any trace of the missing man. No clothes, no equipment, nothing. It's as if he never existed. And this is not an isolated case. The village elders can list dozens of people who disappeared near the house over the decades. Some were skeptics who didn't believe the warnings. Others were curious and simply wanted to see the phenomenon up close. None of them ever returned. Animals also avoid the area. Dogs refuse to go near it. Some were skeptics who didn't believe the warnings. Others were curious and simply wanted to see the phenomenon up close. None of them returned. Animals also avoid the area. Dogs refuse to go near it, no matter how much you force them. Birds don't sing in the nearby trees. It's as if life itself instinctively knows that there is something dangerous about that place. So what is the house without doors? Some researchers suggest that it is a pre-Aztec structure, built by an even older civilization that left very few records. Others think it could be natural, not man-made. A strange geological formation that ancient humans recognized as special and left untouched. But the most fascinating theory is that it is a portal, and not a portal that you need technology or rituals to activate. It is a portal that activates on its own, naturally, following some cycle that we do not fully understand, and when it activates, anything close enough is pulled through it. Where does it lead? No one knows, because no one who has crossed it has returned to tell the tale. The Mexican government is aware of the house without doors. It appears on some old military maps marked with a warning, restricted area, unknown danger. But officially, it doesn't exist. There are no signs directing you to it. There are no mentions in tourist guides, and the locals prefer to keep it that way, because every time someone from outside discovers the house and decides to investigate, someone else disappears. Story number 8, the Babylon Working Ritual. Now we're going to talk about something completely different. Not an accidental trip to the future, not a natural portal discovered by chance, but a deliberate attempt to open a portal by scientists in California in 1946. It's called the Babylon Working, and it's one of the strangest and most disturbing stories in the history of the occult and science. The main characters, Jack Parsons, a brilliant rocket scientist, one of the founders of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, which would later become a crucial part of NASA, a genius in rocket propulsion and chemistry, and also a devoted practitioner of ceremonial magic. L. Ron Hubbard. Yes, that L. Ron Hubbard. The one who would later found Scientology. In 1946, he was still a small-time science fiction writer and Jack Parsons' ritual partner. These two men in January 1946 decided to perform one of the most ambitious magical rituals ever attempted. Their goal, to invoke the goddess Babylon, an entity from Thelemic mythology, taught by occultist Aleister Crowley. But not just invoke her in a symbolic sense. They wanted to physically bring her to Earth, incarnate her in a human body, to open a portal between dimensions to allow entities from the other side to cross over into our world. The ritual took place at Parsons' home in Pasadena, California. For several weeks, Parsons and Hubbard performed complex ceremonies, chants, invocation, magical sexual acts, all designed according to instructions in ancient, occult texts. Parsons kept a detailed diary of the process, and according to his entries, they began to experience strange phenomena, objects moving on their own, temperatures fluctuating dramatically for no reason, lights appearing in the air, and most disturbing, the feeling that there were invisible presences in the room with them. The climax of the ritual occurred in March 1946. Parsons claimed that it was finally successful, that the portal had opened, that Babylon, or some entity that identified itself as her, had crossed over, and that she was incarnated in a woman Parsons met days after the ritual. A woman named Marjorie Cameron, whom Parsons insisted was the physical manifestation of the goddess. It sounds like the delusional fantasy of a scientist who spent too much time studying the occult, except for one thing. About a year after the Babylon working in 1947, the largest wave of UFO sightings in modern history began. The Roswell incident. Kenneth Arnold seeing flying saucers over Washington. Dozens of military sightings. The beginning of what would become the modern UFO phenomenon. Coincidence? Probably. But some researchers noticed something strange. The type of entities described in UFO encounters after 1947 matched eerily with descriptions of beings from other dimensions in ancient occult texts. Not aliens from other planets, but entities from other realities. Beings that exist outside our normal space-time. And if Jack Parsons really opened a portal, did he allow these entities to begin crossing over more frequently? There's more. Parsons died in 1952 in an explosion in his home laboratory. Officially, it was an accident. He was working with explosives and something went wrong. But some suggest he was murdered. That government agencies, alarmed by his experiments combining advanced science with magic, decided he was too dangerous to leave alive. Or worse, that he was killed by something he himself summoned, an entity that decided to silence him. L. Ron Hubbard never spoke publicly about the Babylon working. When he founded Scientology years later, any mention of his days with Parsons was carefully erased from his official biographies. But there are documents, letters, Parsons' diary, all suggesting that these two men really did attempt to open an interdimensional portal. And perhaps, in some horrible way, they succeeded. Story number 9. The portal in the Popocatépetl volcano. Let's return to Mexico, but this time to one of its most iconic symbols, the Popocatépetl volcano. Popo, as Mexicans affectionately call it, is an active volcano, one of the most dangerous in North America, located between Mexico City and Puebla. More than 20 million people live within its potential danger zone. Due to its activity, the volcano is under constant surveillance, multiple cameras, seismic sensors, 24-hour monitoring, and those cameras have captured something extraordinary. UFOs, dozens of them, over the years. No ambiguous lights in the sky. Clear, structured objects, bright spheres, cylindrical shapes. Objects that move in ways that defy conventional physics. And strangest of all, many of these objects fly directly into the volcano's crater and disappear inside. Or they emerge from the crater and fly into the sky. The videos are publicly available. You can look them up yourself. The Mexican authorities do not deny them. The data is real. The question is, what is going on? Theory number 1, UFOs are attracted by the volcano's energy. Perhaps they use geothermal energy in some way. They recharge their ships. Or the energy of the magma interferes with their camouflage systems, making them temporarily visible. Theory number 2, there is a base inside the volcano. It sounds impossible. How could a structure exist inside an active volcano? But some engineers point out that if you have sufficiently advanced technology, a volcano would be the perfect place for a base. The heat of the magma provides unlimited energy. Volcanic activity scares humans away, and no one can dig to investigate without risking a catastrophic eruption. Theory number 3, the volcano contains a portal. The most fascinating. The idea is that the immense energy of the magma, the electromagnetic fields generated by volcanic activity, and possible gravitational anomalies create perfect conditions for a stable interdimensional portal. Not a constructed portal, a natural portal, a feature of Earth's geography. And advanced civilizations know this. They have been using it for centuries, perhaps millennia. It is a cosmic transit station, an interdimensional spaceport. This theory would explain why so many ancient cultures in Mexico considered volcanoes sacred, places where the gods resided, places of power. Perhaps it was not a metaphor. Perhaps they really saw advanced beings entering and leaving the volcanoes, and they interpreted them as gods. Scientists studying Popocatépetl cannot explain the objects in the cameras. Some suggest they are reflections, camera artifacts, ash particles illuminated by the sun. But these objects move intelligently. They change direction. They accelerate and decelerate. They enter and exit the crater with precision. They are not ash. They are not reflections. They are something. But what? Officially, no one says. Story number 10. The Mysteries of Mitra. For our final story, we travel back in time, not to the future, but to the ancient past, to the Roman Empire, to the secret cult of Mitra. Mithras was a god of Persian origin who became incredibly popular among Roman soldiers in the 1st to 4th centuries AD, but it was not a public religion. It was a mystery cult, secret, men only, with initiation rituals that were never revealed to outsiders. Mithraists gathered in underground temples called Mithraea, small chambers carved out of the earth, dark, decorated with images of stars, planets, and the zodiac. What did they do there? We don't know, for sure. The Mithraists had strict rules of secrecy. No detailed texts of their rituals survived, only archaeological clues, images, symbols, but what we do know is fascinating and disturbing. The ceremonies involved induced trance, monotonous chants, psychoactive drugs mixed into wine, all designed to alter the consciousness of the participants. And according to the few references that survived in external texts, the purpose of these rituals was to open a door to the beyond, not metaphorically. Mithraists believed they could literally open a portal to other realms. Artistic representations in Mithraea show Mithras being born from a rock, killing a cosmic bull, ascending to the heavens. But some modern researchers suggest that these images are symbolic of something else, of a process, a spiritual technology for traveling beyond physical reality. The temples were astronomically oriented. Ceremonies were scheduled according to specific planetary positions, as if the cult understood that certain cosmic configurations facilitated these interdimensional journeys. And here's the strangest thing. Many Mithraea were built on even older sites, natural caves, places that pre-Roman cultures already considered sacred, as if the Mithraists had identified places where the barrier between worlds was naturally thinner, and they built their temples there to take advantage of those properties. When Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, the mystery cults were suppressed. The Mithraea were destroyed or sealed. Officially, it was because Christians saw them as pagan, as competition. But some researchers suggest another reason, that the Christian authorities knew what the Mithraists were really doing, and it terrified them, because if they really could open portals, if they really could contact entities from other dimensions, what had they brought into our world? Thousands of Mithraea still exist beneath European cities. Rome, London, Germany, sealed, forgotten. No one performs the ancient rituals there now, but the places remain. And according to some modern psychics and practitioners who have visited them, they can still feel something, a presence, as if whatever the Mithraists invoked 2,000 years ago is still waiting there. Conclusion and final reflection. We've been on an incredible journey together today, From the Chilean desert to secret military bases, from Egyptian pyramids to Mexican volcanoes, from the distant future of the year 3460 to the ancient past of the Roman Empire. 10 stories of time travel and interdimensional portals, some with physical evidence, some with multiple witnesses. Some connected to official history, others completely hidden. The question you're probably asking yourself is, are they real? And the honest answer is, I don't know for sure. But here's what I do know. Time doesn't work the way we were taught in school. Quantum physics has shown that time is relative, that it can dilate, that the past, present, and future could exist simultaneously. Einstein proved that time is part of the fabric of space-time, and that fabric can bend, twist, maybe even tear. Ancient civilizations around the world had astronomical and mathematical knowledge that they shouldn't have had with the tools they supposedly possessed. And unexplained phenomena continue to occur. UFOs captured on video, people disappearing without a trace, places on Earth where compasses don't work and people report experiences of distorted time. Something is going on, something that our mainstream science does not want to or cannot fully explain. Perhaps there are natural portals in certain places on Earth, points where the normal laws of physics become flexible. Perhaps ancient civilizations knew this and built their temples and monuments in those places. Perhaps some people accidentally or intentionally have crossed those portals. They have traveled to other times, other dimensions, and when they return, if they return, their story is dismissed, ridiculed, filed away as an unexplained phenomenon. Because admitting that these things are possible would mean rewriting everything we think we know about reality. But maybe it's time to do just that, because the evidence is mounting, the cases are multiplying, and more people are willing to consider that maybe, just maybe, the universe is much stranger and more wonderful than we ever imagined. To conclude, let me explain the concept of a portal using a simple analogy. Imagine a sheet of paper. Draw 2 dots on opposite corners. If you wanted to travel from one dot to the other on the surface of the paper, you would have to travel a long distance. But now, fold the paper. Fold it until the 2 dots touch. Suddenly, the distance between them is 0. You can go from one point to the other instantly. That's a portal. A fold in space-time. A shortcut through reality. And if the paper that is our universe has places where it is naturally folded, places where 2 seemingly distant points actually touch, then portals aren't just science fiction, they're natural features of cosmic geography. And perhaps, in certain special places on our planet, those folds touch the surface of the Earth, waiting to be discovered, or rediscovered, by those brave enough or crazy enough to take the plunge. Which of these 10 stories impacted you the most? Which one do you think is most likely to be real? And if you could cross a portal to another time or another dimension, would you? Leave your answers in the comments. I want to know your opinion. And if these stories left you questioning the nature of reality, like and subscribe. Because there are many more stories like these waiting to be told. Mysteries that have been hidden, secrets that have been suppressed, truths that challenge everything we were taught. And it's time for them to come to light. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time and space. Until the next mystery, if time and dimensions allow us, that is.